So we've got corn, beans, and squash, and they all have different characteristics, and they're all growing in the same bed. So one of the disadvantages with growing in grow bags is because they dry out so quickly. So I've tried to combat that in a couple of different ways. I've added the Oyas, which is an underground vessel filled with water. The water will seep out. And then I've also grouped the grow bags together, hoping that they will help regulate the temperature and preserve some of that moisture. So far it's going okay. I got it started a little bit late in the season, but I'm definitely going to be trying this again. And I'm getting some success, harvesting some squash, hoping to get some beans. The corn was honestly a little bit of a bust, but I've never been very good at growing corn anyway. Most problems in the garden can be traced back to incorrect watering, either too much water or not enough. So this is the one thing you want to get right. It's important to spend time getting to know your garden, the type of soil you have, your water pressure, all of those things, and then finding the system that works for you, learning how to water. The basic principle is you want to encourage roots to grow deep. You want to water deeply, less often. And that's going to change depending on what time of year it is. During the winter months, especially like the wonderful winters that we've had with lots of rain, you may not water at all. As temperatures heat up, you may water your garden bed as often as every other day or every 3 days. It just depends. It really is important to spend the time figuring out the best way to water your garden. I love using these watering grids. They're really effective and efficient with watering. But really figure out what works for you and get that watering figured out. Because I garden year-round and I'm never just emptying out the whole garden and starting from scratch, a lot of what I do in the garden is manage companion planting and succession planting. Having something planted in place to take over when something else is harvested so that I'm maximizing the space that I have in the garden. Vertical gardening has been a part of my gardening from the very beginning. I've always wanted to add more space, and I've always wanted to add beauty to my garden too, and I feel like vertical gardening does that. And the garden's not picky. You give it something to grow and it will grow up. Vegetables are happier if they can grow, and I think it adds a lot of beauty to the garden too, and there's benefits like adding shade, increased airflow, sunlight. One of my favorite ways to add vertical space and the least expensive is using these ladder mesh block. And I put one end in the ground on one side, one end in the ground over there, and then it gives the plant something to climb. So this Armenian squash is happily growing on this ladder mesh block. So I've added vertical space to this bed rather than having these vines sprawling everywhere, which means more damage from pests. The fruit's harder to find. Now I've got it up here. I can see all this fruit that's hanging here ready to harvest. When the season is done, I have my kids take the vine off this ladder mesh block and I store it away until I need it again. Super simple. I love having chickens in my garden. Number one, it makes it feel like a farm. And here in suburbia, it's kind of nice to have those farm animal noises around me. So I thought this one was ready, but it is actually rotten. It's soft. So this one is going right to the chickens.